many companies are fighting the labor shortage. This ties in really, really neatly, not by raising wages or giving workers better benefits or better working conditions, but by lying to workers about the compensation that they can expect to receive. Owen Higgins reported for More Perfect Union that companies are advertising high salaries like $15, $16, $18, $20 an hour to get people to apply, and then offering them a job at a lower rate after they actually submit an application. And he said that, that's basically what happens is that they, workers will see an advertised rate of pay and they'll apply for the job, and the listing will say, oh, you'll be doing X, Y, Z, whatever, these responsibilities, and the person will apply and they'll say, okay, well, you don't have the experience that we want for this position, so we're going to offer you this lower, worse paid position, or we're just not going to pay you what we said in the advertisement.
Yeah, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah,
and I think that's the
Right.
double standard that we've seen so much between capital and labor, and that balance of power we were talking about earlier. Companies feel emboldened to lie to people, to potential workers and applicants. They feel emboldened to get away with that. But now you, as a potential employee, you are told you must be 100% honest on your application, 100% honest on your resume. Don't you fluff it. Don't make up fake references. You must be 100% above board, or you're in trouble.
Of course. and you can watch the video on More Perfect Union's Twitter page and read the report in Owen's newsletter, both of which are linked in the show notes. But of course, this puts workers in a precarious position. For one, lying and misrepresenting and false advertising is just like, that's bad. It's bad to do that to people.
Not cool.
But it puts workers in a precarious position because many poor and working people, as folks who live paycheck to paycheck, if they put in a resume at a place, if they apply for a job at a place, and then they go and they get an interview, maybe they're spending this time preparing for that interview and not looking for other jobs. And then when they get into the interview and they say, okay, well, we'd like to hire you, but we only want to pay you $8 an hour, $9 an hour, $10 an hour, instead of $15, $16, $17 an hour like we promised you, that really, just on the fact that you have taken this person's time.
Right. Opportunity cost.
Yeah. You've wasted their time that could have been spent doing other things or looking for another job or just laying on the couch. But, because it would have been worth the same amount of money. And also, of course, there are many like unemployment benefits that are tied to looking for a job. And so if you turn down a job, then you can be kicked off the unemployment. And so obviously, if you have a person that is at a certain, like if I were to need to look for a different job, I would go on unemployment, and people aren't going to, you shouldn't have to take literally the first thing that comes your way. You should be able to take a job that fits you. You should be able to that pays well. That should be and you should have a little bit of leverage in these sorts of negotiations. But what the companies are doing is that, okay, well, if you put your application in with us and you don't accept the job, then you're going to lose your unemployment, and so you have to take the job. So not only are you losing this opportunity cost, and then once you take the job, you're working for them full time. When are you going to look for other jobs? You've been stuck. You have been trapped in a low wage, presumably, service sector job. That's what a lot of these companies were like. Staples and McDonald's were two of the biggest offenders. You're stuck at these low wage, dead end jobs. Not because, of course, the labor that the people who work at Staples and McDonald's do not because their labor is worth less or because they are worth less as people, but because the companies have chosen to pay them less and because they have the power to pay them less, and the workers do not have the power to refuse the work or to bargain collectively. But you're stuck then. You're stuck at this job instead of being able to find a better job that fits you better, that pays you more. Now you're stuck at this job. Again, still living paycheck to paycheck. You can't quit because you won't have unemployment insurance, and you don't have time to look for another job, or you have very little time to look for another job. And so it's really, I mean, it puts working people, poor people, in a very precarious position, and it's something that folks need to look out for. It's something that you need to be very wary of. If you are out there looking for a job, be wary and take precautions because this is something that could happen to you.
Yeah, I think it's important anytime you're in getting yourself ready for a new job, or certainly at a new employer, but even at an existing employer, and you're maybe taking a transfer or a so-called promotion. Anything you can get in writing, please do it, because it is certainly not unusual for you to be misled about wages and about benefits, about scheduling and the hours you can expect. I think any of us who've worked in service sector jobs know that if you're promised a ton of hours and that's how they get you to agree, then you're probably not going to get them. Likewise, if you're promised, oh, don't worry, this will just be a part-time thing, you can still work around your family obligations or your other job or your school. Inevitably, that's when they want you to work, 6-7 days a week.
Right.
So it's definitely something that happens, and I think the cyclical part of it is certainly something that resonates. If you've ever lived paycheck to paycheck, and it's very hard to get out of the cycle of just scraping by.
Yeah.
You're just trying to make it through each day, each week, each month with your bills paid, and it's so hard to just scrape by and take care of that it's hard to have the time and the physical energy and mental capacity to get out of it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, being poor is expensive.
It is. And it's hard to break out of.
Yeah.
And that's not just, anecdotal experience. I mean, obviously, if you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about and you feel it. But it is a statistical proven fact about social mobility in this country. Once you're poor, you're unlikely to not be poor. Right, and if you were born wealthy, chances are you're going to die wealthy.
Yep.
So that's America.
Yeah. So, and the best way to, we come to it all the time, but the best way, and the way that Starbucks workers, among others, are finding is to organize a union. I mean, there was a tweet.
If we're going to sink or swim together, then let's try to swim together.
Right. Yeah. There was a tweet about this that showed this person who just unionized with the IBEW, and they signed and their employer, this construction contractor, signed a contract with IBEW, and they got like a 150% raise immediately. Like they went from making $17 an hour to $30-something an hour, so that's the power that a union can give you, and that's the power of, and it's not like magical, it's because you get more power when you come together as a collective.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.